Nobody in that oil-streaked auto shop expected the woman in the tailored navy suit to stop like she'd just hit a wall. But the moment Amber Robinson stepped past the half-open garage door, she froze. Because the man standing under the raised hood of a car was her ex-boyfriend, Edison Clifford. Amber hadn't planned to be there. She had a board meeting in less than an hour. A deal worth hundreds of millions sitting on the edge of a signature. Investors waiting. Assistants calling. Markets shifting. Her world didn't pause. It moved when she did. Until her car didn't. The engine of her vintage Aston Martin had sputtered twice, then died completely on a quiet industrial road lined with warehouses and repair shops that looked like they hadn't changed in 20 years. Amber had stepped out, already dialing for a private tow. But then she saw the sign. A small garage. Faded lettering. Open bay doors. It was faster to walk in than wait. That was her first mistake. The smell hit her immediately. Oil, metal, heat, something burnt and stubborn. Tools clanged somewhere in the back. A radio crackled through static. Laughter echoed between engines and steel. This wasn't her world. She didn't belong here. Amber adjusted her blazer like armor and stepped forward. I need someone to. Her voice stopped. Because he looked up. Edison Clifford. Sleeves rolled up. Grease streaked across his jaw. One hand gripping a wrench like it belonged there. His posture is steady. His expression is unreadable. For a second, the entire shop seemed to fall silent. Or maybe it was just her. Amber's throat tightened before she could stop it. Edison? The name came out softer than she intended. Like something unfinished. He didn't smile. Didn't step forward. Didn't react the way someone should after years apart. He just looked at her. Then at the car behind her. Then back at her again. Car trouble, he asked. Flat. Professional. Like she was a stranger. That hit harder than anything else. Before we continue this story, if this moment stirred something in you, if you felt the tension, the silence, the things left unsaid, then don't just scroll past it. Tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story is reaching. And if this story moved you even a little, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves deep, emotional storytelling just like you do. Because trust me, this is only the beginning. Now let's dive in. Amber let out a short breath, something between a laugh and disbelief. Is that really all you're going to say? A mechanic from the other side of the shop glanced over, wiping his hands on a rag. Hey, Cliff, the man called out casually, loud enough for others to hear. You gonna stand there all day or actually do your job? A couple of the guys chuckled. The customer doesn't look like she's got time for your staring contest. Amber's jaw tightened slightly. Edison didn't react to them either. He just walked past her toward the car, calm, controlled, like nothing about this moment mattered. Like she didn't matter. Pop the hood, he said. No emotion. No hesitation. Amber didn't move at first. Because this wasn't how it was supposed to feel. In her memory, Edison Clifford wasn't this man. He was the one who stayed up all night building prototypes on a kitchen table. The one who talked about changing industries, not fixing engines. The one who left. The memory hit fast and sharp. A small apartment. Rain against the windows. A suitcase by the door. Just tell me why, Amber had said back then, her voice breaking despite every effort to hold it steady. Edison hadn't looked at her. That doesn't matter, he replied. It matters to me. Silence. Then the words that rewrote everything. This is the only way. No, she had said immediately, shaking her head. No, you don't get to walk away like that. Not without telling me the truth. But he had. He walked out and never came back. Amber forced herself back into the present. The sound of metal clicking pulled her attention. Edison was already working. Efficient. Precise. Focused. Too focused. Like if he stopped moving, something else might surface. Amber crossed her arms. You disappeared, she said, her voice sharper now. Controlled, but not calm. No explanation. No call. Nothing. No response. You had everything, she continued. Talent. Opportunities. A future. Still nothing. Her eyes swept over him. The worn uniform. The grease-stained hands. The name patch stitched onto his chest. This was what he chose. And this is where you ended up, she finished. That made him pause. Just for a second. Then he tightened something under the hood and stepped back slightly. The other mechanic scoffed from across the room. Yeah, Cliff's full of surprises, he muttered. Guy could have done more. But hey, some people just settle. A few low laughs followed. Amber didn't join them, but she didn't stop them either. Edison wiped his hands slowly with a rag, then finally looked at her again. Not angry, not embarrassed, just distant, like he was measuring something. You still assume you know everything, he said quietly. Amber's breath caught, just for a second, because that sounded like the Edison she remembered, but it was gone just as quickly. He turned back to the engine. Your car'll be ready in 10 minutes. Dismissed. Just like that. Amber stood there, something unfamiliar pressing against her chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to confusion. Because as she watched him work, really watched, she saw it. The precision. The control. The quiet brilliance in every movement. Nothing wasted. Nothing random. This wasn't a man who had failed. This was a man who had chosen something. And suddenly, that felt worse. Amber's voice lowered, almost to herself. What happened to you? Edison didn't look up this time, but his grip on the wrench tightened just slightly. Nothing, he said. A beat. Then, quieter. Everything just changed. Amber didn't believe him. Not for a second. And for the first time since walking into that garage, she felt it. Not control. Not certainty. But something far more dangerous. Doubt. The engine purred. Smooth. Controlled. Perfect. Amber stared at the car like it had just betrayed her. Because it wasn't supposed to be this easy. Not for him. Well, she said, straightening slightly, slipping back into something familiar, something sharp. At least you're still good at something. The words came out polished, but edged. Edison didn't react. He closed the hood with a firm click, wiping his hands slowly on a rag. Professional. Detached. Amber reached into her bag, pulling out her wallet with deliberate precision. How much, she asked. Standard rate. She didn't ask what that was. Instead, she pulled out a stack of cash, far more than necessary, and held it toward him. For your time. Edison glanced at it, then at her. And for the first time since she walked in, something in his expression shifted. Not surprise. Not gratitude. Something closer to insult. I said standard rate, he repeated. Amber didn't lower her hand. It's fine, she said lightly. Consider it compensation. For what? The question landed sharper than expected. Amber tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing. For ending up here. Silence. Thick. Immediate. Edison let out a slow breath, folding the rag in his hands once before setting it aside. I didn't ask for your help. No. Amber said, her voice tightening. You just walked away instead. There it was. Finally. The thing sitting between them since the moment she stepped inside. Edison's jaw flexed. But he didn't look away. You don't get to do that, Amber continued, stepping closer now. You don't get to disappear for 3 years and then stand here like none of it happened. I'm not pretending anything. You're acting like I don't exist. That's not the same thing. Amber let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Unbelievable. Her grip tightened slightly around the money still in her hand. I defended you, you know, she said. After you left. To everyone. I told them you had a reason. That you weren't just. She stopped herself, shaking her head. But this? Her eyes swept over him again. The garage. The grease. The life. This is what I get in return. Edison's expression hardened. Return, he repeated. Yes, Amber shot back. You had everything. You were supposed to be. Something else, he cut in. The tension snapped tighter. Amber held his gaze. Yes. For a moment, Edison said nothing. But this time, the silence wasn't empty. It was controlled. Deliberate. You don't know what I was supposed to be, he said quietly. Amber's breath hitched, just slightly. Then explain it to me. A beat. Give me one reason that makes this make sense. Edison looked at her. Really looked this time. And something flickered beneath the surface. Gone almost instantly. I don't owe you that. The words were calm. But final. Amber's expression shifted. Not a shock. Not hurt. Something colder. Of course you don't, she said, lowering the money at last, only to tuck it back into her bag with sharp precision. Because that would require honesty. Edison didn't respond. Instead, he stepped past her, reaching into the car one last time, adjusting something minor. Unnecessary. Except it wasn't. Amber watched him closely now. The way his hands moved. The way he listened. To the engine. To the rhythm. To something invisible most people would miss. Nothing about it was average. Nothing about him was. And that realization settled deeper than she expected. You could have been anywhere, she said, quieter now. Not accusing, just stating. Doing anything. Edison stepped back again. Finished. I am somewhere, he replied. Amber opened her mouth, then stopped, because there was nothing left to say, not without breaking something she wasn't ready to touch. So instead, she turned, walked toward the driver's side, paused, just for a second. I hope, she said without looking at him. Whatever this is was worth it. Her hand rested on the door handle. Behind her, silence stretched. Then, Edison's voice. Low, steady, and different from anything he'd said before. Some things aren't what you think they are. Amber froze, just slightly, her fingers tightening against the metal. But she didn't turn around, didn't ask, didn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, she opened the door and slid inside. The engine came to life instantly. Perfect, like nothing had ever been wrong. But as she drove away, his words followed her. Not loud, not clear, but enough. Because for the first time since she saw him again, Amber Robinson wasn't certain of anything anymore. And that unsettled her more than his silence ever could. The glass door slid open without a sound. Amber Robinson walked in like she always did. Sharp, composed, untouchable. The building rose around her in clean lines and reflective steel. Light poured through towering windows, catching on polished floors and tailored silhouettes moving with purpose. Assistants straightened as she passed. Voices lowered. Eyes followed. Control had a presence. And Amber carried it effortlessly. Ms. Robinson, her assistant said quickly, falling into step beside her. The board is already assembled. The investors from Zurich are on the line, and legal has finalized the last revision. Good. Amber cut in smoothly. Let's not keep them waiting. Everything was exactly where it should be. Exactly how she built it. The boardroom doors opened. Screens lit up instantly. Charts. Numbers. Projections. A deal worth hundreds of millions hovered just one signature away from completion. Amber took her seat at the head of the table, fingers resting lightly against the polished surface. Let's begin. Her voice was steady, confident, unshaken. But as the presentation started, as figures climbed and projections soared, something felt off. Projected growth of 32% within the first quarter. Amber nodded slightly. On cue. Perfect timing. Perfect response. But she wasn't listening. Not really. Because a voice, quiet, controlled, cut through the noise in her mind. Some things aren't what you think they are. Her fingers stilled. Just for a second. Barely noticeable. Amber. One of the executives prompted gently. She blinked once. Refocused instantly. Continue. The meeting moved forward. Flawless. Efficient. Successful. Exactly like every deal before it. And yet, the unease didn't leave. Hours later, her office stood in silence. The city stretched endlessly beyond the glass walls. Orderly, predictable, hers. Amber stood by the window, arms crossed. Thinking. That feeling again. Subtle. Persistent. Wrong. She turned sharply, walking to her desk and pulling up the deal file again. Everything checked out. It always did. Numbers aligned. Contracts airtight. Partners are reliable. Too reliable. Amber's eyes narrowed slightly. She opened another file. Then another, older deals. Previous acquisitions, partnership records. At first, it was nothing. Just data. But then, she saw it. A company acquisition from 2 years ago. The competitor had collapsed suddenly. Unexpected bankruptcy. At the time, it had been called fortunate timing. Amber scrolled further. Another deal. Another competitor. Another collapse. Different industries. Same outcome. Her fingers slowed over the keyboard. That was a coincidence. It had to be. She opened investor records. Names she recognized. Power players. Consistent backers. Until they weren't. One by one, they disappeared. Quietly. No scandal. No noise. Just gone. Replaced seamlessly by new investors. Better ones, stronger ones, more aligned. Amber's pulse slowed. Not with panic, but with focus. Her empire had always been perfect. Too perfect. Every deal landed exactly when it needed to. Every obstacle removed itself before it became a problem. Every risk dissolving. At the time, she called it strategy. Precision, control. But now, looking at it from the outside, it didn't feel like control, it felt like design. Her jaw tightened slightly. No, she murmured under her breath. She leaned back, staring at the screen. Thinking, replaying, reanalyzing. Because if this wasn't coincidence, then what was it? And more importantly, who was behind it? The office felt different now. Quieter, heavier, like the walls themselves were holding something back. Amber's gaze drifted to the city again, everything she built, everything she controlled, everything she believed she understood, and for the first time, it didn't feel solid. It felt constructed, carefully, deliberately. Her fingers curled slightly against the edge of the desk, and without realizing it, she whispered the thought forming in the back of her mind. This wasn't luck. The words hung in the air soft but undeniable. Because somewhere beneath the surface of her perfect world, something had been moving, shaping, deciding, and suddenly, Amber Robinson wasn't sure if she had been in control at all. The city didn't sleep, but Amber Robinson didn't care. By the time her car turned into the industrial road again, the world she knew felt distant, muted, irrelevant. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across empty pavement. The warehouses stood like silent witnesses, unchanged from earlier, but something about them felt heavier now, like she was seeing them for the first time, or maybe for what they really were. The garage was still open, barely one light burned inside. Amber stepped out of the car without hesitation this time. No pause, no doubt, just purpose. Inside, the noise was gone. No laughter, no radios, no distractions. Just the quiet rhythm of metal against metal. Edison stood alone under the hood of a car, sleeves rolled, head slightly lowered, focused. Always focused. For a moment, Amber just watched him. The same precision, the same control. The same man who had walked away from everything, from her. Working late now, she said. Her voice cut clean through the silence. Edison didn't flinch, didn't look surprised, like he had expected her. Or maybe, like nothing surprised him anymore. Shop's closed, he replied calmly. Then stopped working. That got his attention. He straightened slowly, turning to face her. And this time, there was no distance in her eyes. Only fire. Amber stepped forward. You're going to tell me what's going on. Edison's expression didn't change. There's nothing to tell. Don't do that, she snapped. Don't stand there and pretend like I didn't just uncover something bigger than both of us. A flicker. Subtle, but real. Edison's jaw tightened slightly. You shouldn't be digging into things you don't understand. Amber let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. Of course, she said. Because that's always your answer, isn't it? Silence. Distance. Walk away and let everyone else deal with the consequences. I didn't. Yes, you did. She cut him off, her voice rising now, breaking through the control she had carried all day. You left. You vanished. You took everything we were building and just, she snapped her fingers, decided it didn't matter. Edison's gaze hardened. You think that's what happened? I know that's what happened. The tension snapped. You don't know anything, Edison said, sharper now, stepping toward her. Amber didn't back down. Then tell me, she fired back. Tell me why every deal I've made lines up with something collapsing behind the scenes. Tell me why people disappear right when I need them to. Tell me why everything in my life suddenly looks like it was planned. She stopped. Because she saw it. For the first time, Edison wasn't calm. He was tense. Not angry. Not defensive. Something else. Something protective. You should have stayed out of it, he said quietly. Amber shook her head. No, you don't get to say that anymore. She stepped closer. Close enough that there was no space left for distance. You owe me the truth. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then, Edison exhaled slowly, like he had been holding it in for years. You want the truth? He said. Amber held his gaze. Yes. Another beat. Then his voice dropped, low, steady, and final. I didn't leave you, Amber, a pause. Just long enough for the words to settle. Then, I kept you alive. The world didn't move. The air didn't shift. But something inside Amber did. Completely. Her breath caught. Sharp, involuntary. What? She whispered. But Edison didn't repeat himself. Didn't explain. Didn't soften it. He just stood there, watching her. Like he had just handed her something she wasn't ready to carry. Amber's mind raced. Every deal, every pattern, every unanswered question crashing together at once. Alive. Kept her alive? From what? From who? The silence between them stretched again, but this time, it wasn't empty. It was filled with something dangerous. Something real. Something that changed everything. And for the first time, Amber Robinson didn't have a response. Didn't have control. Didn't have answers. She just stood there, staring at the man she thought she understood, realizing she never did. The words didn't leave the room. They stayed there. Heavy. Unavoidable. I kept you alive. Amber stared at Edison like she didn't recognize him. Like the man in front of her had just rewritten everything she thought she knew. That doesn't make any sense, she said, her voice quieter now, but unsteady. From what? From who? Edison didn't answer immediately. He turned away, not to avoid her, but to think, to choose. Because whatever he said next, there was no taking it back. Before your first major deal, he began, his voice low, controlled. Before your company started getting attention, you were already on someone's radar. Amber's brow furrowed. That's not possible. It is. He looked back at her, and this time, there was no distance. Only the truth. They weren't competitors, he continued. Not in the way you think. They don't operate in the open. They don't fight for market share. Amber felt her chest tighten slightly. Then what do they do? Edison held her gaze. They erase threats before they become powerful. The words landed cold. Precise. Final. Amber shook her head instinctively. No. If something like that existed, I would have seen it. I would have. You wouldn't. Edison cut in quietly. Because they don't leave traces. That's the point. Silence. Then, I found them, he added. That stopped her. How? Edison exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening slightly as memory surfaced. I was working on a system back then, tracking market anomalies, patterns that didn't make sense. Companies are collapsing too cleanly. Investors pulling out too early, like someone was steering outcomes. Amber's mind flashed back. The patterns she had just seen. The deals. The disappearances. Her stomach dropped. And you connected it to me? She asked. I connected it to you becoming a target, he corrected. The garage felt smaller now, like the truth itself was taking up space. They noticed you early, Edison continued. Your growth. Your projections. You were moving too fast. Too clean. Amber's voice barely held. So they were going to what? Destroy me? Edison didn't hesitate. Yes. The word hit harder than anything else. Amber took a small step back. Processing. Struggling. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded. Why didn't you come to me with this? Edison's expression shifted, not to anger, but something deeper. Because the moment they knew I told you, you would have been gone. The silence that followed was suffocating. So instead, Amber said slowly, her voice trembling now despite her effort to hold it steady. You just disappeared? I removed myself. That's not an answer. It is the answer, he snapped. Finally, the control cracking just enough. You were my only leverage. Amber froze. What? They couldn't get to you directly, he said, quieter now. So they watched me. Watched us. Waiting for a weakness. Understanding hit, slow. Terrifying. And I was it, she whispered. Edison didn't deny it. So you left? Amber said, her voice hollow now. Just like that. Edison shook his head once. No, not just like that. He stepped closer. Not to close the distance, but to make sure she heard every word. I made it look like I failed, he said. Like I walked away from everything. I destroyed my own career before they could touch it. Cut every connection. Every opportunity. Amber's chest tightened painfully. You threw everything away. For you. The words were quiet. But absolutely. I made sure there was nothing left they could use against you, he continued. No ties. No leverage. No reason to keep watching me. Amber's eyes burned. Because suddenly, it all made sense. The silence. The cold goodbye. The life he had chosen. Not failure. Not a weakness. A shield. You let me hate you, she said, her voice breaking despite her control. You let me believe you didn't care. Edison's expression didn't change. I needed you to believe it. Amber shook her head, overwhelmed now. You don't get to decide that for me. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. Not when it's between your life and everything else. The words hit like a collision. And just like that, the room fell silent again. Amber stood there, breathing uneven, her entire reality shifting under her feet. Every memory, every assumption, every piece of anger she held on to, cracking, reforming. You should have told me, she whispered. Edison didn't argue, didn't justify, because maybe he knew she was right. But then, he said something else, something quieter, something worse. They never stopped watching you. Amber's breath caught. What? Edison's gaze darkened slightly. I removed myself from the equation, he said. But you, a beat. They were never interested in me. The weight of it settled slowly, dangerously, because if they had been watching her this whole time, then everything she built, everything she believed she controlled, might have never truly been hers. The building felt different now. Not safer. Not familiar. Watched. Amber stepped out of the elevator, her heels echoing sharply against marble floors. Everything looked the same. Glass walls. Clean lines. Controlled movement. But now, she saw it differently. Every conversation felt quieter when she passed. Every glance lingered just a second too long. Paranoia? Maybe. But after last night, after Edison, she wasn't willing to ignore anything. "Good morning, Ms. Robinson," her assistant said, falling into step beside her. Amber didn't slow. "Cancel everything afternoon," she said, "and pull internal access logs for the last 6 months." Her assistant blinked. "Is there an issue?" Amber's expression didn't shift. "I'm about to find out." Her office door closed behind her with a soft click. Amber didn't sit. She moved straight to her desk, pulling up files, internal communications, executive clearances, deal authorizations. At first, everything looked clean. It always did, but this time, she wasn't looking for mistakes. She was looking for an intention. Patterns. Leaks. Her fingers moved faster. Cross-referencing timelines. Deals. Decisions. Then she saw it. A minor authorization override. Buried deep. Almost invisible. Her eyes narrowed. She pulled the name attached to it. Senior executive. High-level clearance. Trusted. Too trusted. Amber leaned back slowly, her pulse steady, but colder now. Because this wasn't random. This was inside. An hour later, she stood behind the glass wall of a conference room. Inside, the executive laughed lightly with another team member, relaxed, untouched by the storm about to hit. Amber watched him carefully. Every movement, every gesture, nothing obvious. That was the problem. He looked exactly like someone who belonged there. Her jaw tightened slightly. Because that's exactly how it would be. No noise. No mistakes. Just quiet access. Quiet control. Her phone buzzed softly in her hand. A message. Unknown number. Amber hesitated for half a second, then opened it. "You've done well." Her breath stilled. The message continued. Faster than expected. Amber's grip tightened around the phone. No number. No trace. Just text. Her eyes flicked back to the man in the conference room. Still laughing. Still unaware. Or pretending to be. Another message appeared. But success comes with attention. A pause. Then, "You should be careful who you trust." Amber's chest tightened. Not fear. Not yet. Something sharper. Something colder. Confirmation. She turned away from the glass slowly, her mind already moving ahead. This wasn't a theory anymore. This wasn't a suspicion. This was real. They were still here. Still watching. Still inside her world. Her empire. Her control. And suddenly, it didn't feel like hers at all. By the time she reached her office again, the weight of it had settled fully. Edison was right. Every deal. Every perfect outcome. Every unexplained advantage. It wasn't luck. It was an influence. Guidance. Manipulation. Amber placed her phone on the desk, staring at the message like it might reveal more if she looked long enough. "They've been here the whole time," she murmured. And worse, they wanted her to know it. That night, she didn't go home. She drove. Back to the one place that no longer felt like a coincidence. The garage. Edison was there. Of course he was. Like he always knew when she would come back. He didn't ask this time. Didn't pretend. He just looked at her dot and saw it immediately. "You found something." Amber stepped closer. "Not something," she said quietly. "Someone." Edison's expression darkened slightly. Inside, she nodded, and they reached out. That made him go still. Not surprised. Not shocked. Just certain. They always do. Amber crossed her arms, holding herself steady. They're not hiding anymore. Edison exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "That means it's already started." A beat. Amber's voice dropped. "What does that mean?" Edison met her eyes. And this time, there was no distance. No control. Just the truth. "This time," he said quietly, "they won't scare you away." A pause. "Then, they'll take everything." The words settled deep. Too deep. Amber felt it. Not panic. Not fear. Something worse. Vulnerability. Because for the first time in years, she didn't have the upper hand. Didn't have control. I didn't have certainty. Her empire wasn't secure. Her people weren't loyal. Her success wasn't hers. And her enemy was already inside. Amber looked at Edison, her voice barely above a whisper now. "I'm not safe, am I?" He didn't answer right away. Didn't soften it. Didn't lie. When he finally spoke, it was quiet. Final. No. And just like that, everything changed again. The boardroom was already full. And this time, Amber didn't walk in to lead. She walked in to expose. Voices filled the room, controlled, professional, unaware. Investors on screen. Executives seated. Legal present. Everything in place. Exactly how it always started. Amber stepped inside, her presence cutting through the noise instantly. Silence followed. Not out of respect. Out of anticipation. Because something was different. "Let's begin," she said, her voice calm, but sharper than usual. No introductions. No formalities. Just pressure. Amber didn't sit. She stayed standing at the head of the table, her gaze locking onto one person. Him. The executive. Still composed. Still confident. Still pretending. "You've been busy," she said. A ripple of confusion spread across the room. The man frowned slightly, leaning back in his chair. "I'm not sure what you mean." Amber didn't blink. Internal overrides. Unauthorized data access. Quiet adjustments to deal timelines. Now, the room shifted. Eyes turned. Attention sharpened. The executive let out a small, controlled laugh. "If this is about system errors, I assure you, it's not," Amber cut in. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Because now, everyone was listening. Amber tapped the screen behind her. Files appeared instantly. Timelines. Logs. Access records. Clean. Organized. "Damning. These aren't errors," she said. "They're decisions." The executive's expression tightened, just slightly. "Anyone in this room has access to those systems." "Not like this," Amber replied. She stepped closer to the table. Closer to him. "You didn't just access information," she continued. "You redirected it. Delayed it. Controlled it." Murmurs broke out now. Low. Uneasy. Investors leaned forward on screen. "This is a serious accusation," the executive said, his tone sharpening. "If you're implying misconduct, I expect real proof, not speculation." Amber held his gaze. Cold. Precise. "I was hoping you'd say that." The door opened. Not loudly, but enough. Every head turned. Edison stepped inside. Uninvited. Unannounced. And completely out of place. The room reacted instantly. Confusion. Disapproval. Dismissal. "Who is this?" someone demanded. Amber didn't look away from the executive. "Someone who sees what you missed," she said. Edison didn't speak immediately. He walked forward, placing a small drive onto the table. Calm. Certain. "External surveillance logs," he said finally. "Encrypted network activity tied to internal access points." The room went still. Amber gestured toward the screen. "Play it." The data loaded. And then it unfolded. Connections. Transfers. Hidden communications routed through internal systems. All leading back to one person. The executive's composure cracked. Not dramatically, but enough. "This proves nothing," he said quickly. "Data can be manipulated, not like this," Edison said, his voice quiet but absolute. For the first time, the executive looked at him. Really looked. And something passed between them. Recognition. Danger. "You don't belong here," the man said coldly. Edison didn't react. "I was never meant to." Amber stepped in again. "You've been feeding information out," she said. "Positioning outcomes. Controlling deals from the inside." The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Investors are demanding answers. Executives shifting in their seats. Control slipping. "This is unacceptable," one investor snapped through the screen. "If this company has been compromised, it hasn't," Amber cut in sharply. But even she heard it. The doubt. The hesitation. Because the damage was already visible. Stock projections flashing red. Risk assessments recalculating in real time. Confidence breaking. The executive leaned forward now, his expression no longer defensive, but calculating. "You think exposing me fixes this?" he said quietly. "You think this stops anything?" Amber's jaw tightened. "It removes you." A small smile touched his lips. Too late. Security moved in. Fast. Controlled. The executive didn't resist. Didn't argue. He stood smoothly, adjusting his jacket like this was just another meeting. Another outcome. As they escorted him out, he paused beside Amber. Close enough that only she could hear. "You were never in control," he murmured. Then he was gone. Silence followed. Heavy. Fractured. The room wasn't stable anymore. Investors were already pulling back. Voices filled with doubt, with concern, with distance. Amber stood at the center of it, watching everything she built begin to tilt. Not fall. Not yet. But close. Too close. Her empire wasn't gone. But it wasn't untouchable anymore. And everyone in that room knew it. Slowly, the room began to empty. No resolution. No victory. Just damage control. Amber remained where she was. Still. Silent. Edison stepped closer, but didn't speak. Because he didn't need to. She already understood. Exposing the truth didn't fix anything. It just revealed how deep it went. Amber's voice came quietly. Controlled. But heavier than before. This was just one of them. Edison didn't deny it. And as the last screen went dark, Amber realized something she couldn't ignore anymore. She hadn't won. She had barely survived. And next time, they wouldn't play from the shadows. The message came just after midnight. No number. No warning. Just 4 words. We're done waiting. Amber didn't hesitate. She called him. No answer. Again. Nothing. Her chest tightened. Not with panic, but something sharper. Certainty. They're moving, she whispered. This time. Not through boardrooms. Not through contracts. Direct. Final. Amber grabbed her keys and moved. The city blurred past her in streaks of light and shadow. Her mind moved faster. Patterns. Timing. If they wanted to end it, they wouldn't come for her first. They'd remove the variable they couldn't control. Edison. Her grip tightened on the wheel. Not this time, she muttered. The garage lights were on. Too bright. Too still. Amber stepped out slowly, every instinct sharpening. Edison. No response. She moved inside. The air felt wrong. Quiet. Heavy. Then a sound. Metal shifting. Footsteps. Not his. Amber turned, just as 2 men stepped from the shadows. Not mechanics. Not workers. Controlled. Purposeful. Dangerous. You shouldn't be here, one of them said calmly. Amber's expression didn't change. Where is he? A faint smile. Busy. Movement behind her. Amber spun. Edison. Held in place. 2 more men. Restrained, but not broken. His eyes met hers instantly. Sharp. Alert. And then, anger. You weren't supposed to come here, he said. Amber stepped forward anyway. And let you do this again, she shot back. Not happening. The man in front of her chuckled softly. Loyalty, he said. Predictable. Amber didn't look at him. Only Edison. I told you. Edison said quietly. This isn't your fight. Amber's jaw tightened. It became mine the second you decided to carry it alone. The man stepped closer. You've been difficult to remove, he said to Edison. But necessary. Amber finally turned her gaze to him. Cold. Measured. You're done. The man smiled. No, he said simply. You are. Amber didn't respond. She reached into her pocket and pressed a single button. A beat. Then, sirens. Distant at first. Then louder. Closer. Faster. The man's expression shifted, just slightly. Amber stepped forward now, her voice calm. You really thought I'd walk into this unprepared? The sound of tires screeching outside filled the air. Doors slamming. Voices shouting. Police. Stay where you are. Everything moved at once. The men reacted, but it was too late. Officers flooded the garage, weapons drawn, commands sharp and precise. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Struggle. Control, ripped away from the syndicate in seconds. Amber didn't move. Didn't flinch. She just watched. Because this time, she wasn't reacting. She had planned it. Within minutes, it was over. The men were restrained. Taken down. Removed. One by one. The leader, the one who had spoken, was forced to his knees, his calm finally breaking. This doesn't end here, he muttered. Amber stepped closer. And for the first time, there was no doubt in her voice. It does for you. He said nothing more. Because he couldn't. The garage fell quiet again. But this time, it was different. Controlled. Safe. Edison was released, the tension in his shoulders still visible even as he stepped free. Amber turned to him slowly. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. Because the weight of what almost happened was still there. You could have been killed, Amber said finally, her voice quieter now. Not sharp. Not controlled. Real. Edison held her gaze. So could you. That's not the point. It is. Amber shook her head. No, she said. The point is, I almost lost you again. The words hung between them. Unfiltered. Unprotected. Edison didn't respond immediately. Because for once, he didn't have a way to deflect it. Amber exhaled slowly, her composure slipping just enough to reveal what had been buried underneath all along. I thought I already went through that, she said. I thought I already knew what it felt like to lose you. A pause. Her eyes didn't leave his. But I didn't. Edison's expression softened, just slightly. Not distance. Not control. Something closer to understanding. And as the last of the sirens faded into the distance, Amber realized something she couldn't ignore anymore. This wasn't just about survival, or power, or control. It was about him. It always has been. And this time, she wasn't letting him disappear again. The silence felt different now. Not heavy, not suffocating, just still. Morning light filtered softly through the garage windows, replacing the harsh glare of the night before. Everything was quiet. No sirens. No shouting. No danger. Just the faint scent of oil and metal lingering in the air, familiar, grounded. Amber stood near the workbench, her fingers resting lightly against the surface. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about deals, or power, or control. She was thinking about him. Edison stepped into the space behind her, quieter than usual. Not guarded, not distant, just present. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Because this part, mattered more than everything else. Amber exhaled slowly. You let me hate you. The words came out soft. Not accusing, not sharp, just true. Edison didn't deny it. It was the only way to keep you safe. Amber closed her eyes briefly, the weight of that settling fully now. Not as a revelation, but as something she finally understood. I thought you chose to leave, she said quietly. I thought you gave up on everything we were building. Edison leaned against the edge of the table, his gaze steady. I chose you, he said. Simple, uncomplicated. And somehow, that made it harder. Amber let out a small breath, something fragile breaking through her usual control. All this time, I was angry at you. You had a right to be. No, she shook her head slightly. I had a version of the truth. Not the truth. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It was understanding. Amber turned to face him fully now. And for the first time, she wasn't the woman from the boardroom. Not the strategist. Not the untouchable force. Just Amber. I built everything thinking I was in control, she admitted. That every decision, every win, it was mine. Edison didn't interrupt, because he knew where this was going. But I wasn't, she continued. And worse, I didn't see what you gave up to protect it. Her voice softened. To protect me. Edison looked down briefly, then back at her. I made that choice, he said. You don't owe me anything for it. Amber held his gaze. Maybe not, she said. But I'm not going to ignore it either. She stepped back slightly, glancing around the garage. At the worn walls. The aging equipment. The place where everything had hidden in plain sight. This place, she said slowly. It was never meant to be the end of your story. Edison's brow furrowed slightly. It wasn't supposed to be a story at all. Amber smiled faintly. Then let's change that. He studied her carefully. What are you saying? Amber met his eyes again, this time with clarity. Not a buyout, she said. Not in control. A pause. A partnership. That made him still. I'm not asking you to step into my world, she continued. And I'm not stepping into yours. She gestured lightly around them. We build something new. Together. Edison didn't speak. But she saw it, the hesitation. No doubt in her. But in the idea itself. I don't need saving, Amber. I know, she said immediately. That's why I'm not trying to save you. A beat. I'm asking you to stand beside me. That landed. Different. Deeper. Silence stretched between them again. But this time, it wasn't uncertain. It was a choice. Edison looked around the garage once more. Then back at her. At everything they had been. Everything they had lost. Everything they had just survived. You'd really do it? He asked. Start over like that? Amber didn't hesitate. Yes. Not control. Not power. Just the truth. Edison exhaled slowly, a faint shift in his expression. Something softer, something real. Then, finally, he nodded. All right. One word. But it meant everything. Amber smiled. Not the polished, controlled smile she gave the world. Something quieter. Something earned. Weeks later, the garage didn't look the same. Glass replaced rusted panels. Modern equipment stood where worn tools once lay. A space rebuilt, not erased. Transformed. A high-end engineering workshop. Not hidden. Not small. But intentional. And at the center of it, two people who had finally chosen the truth over the past. Because not everything is as it seems. Sacrifice often looks like betrayal. And love sometimes hides in the hardest choices. What began as shock became the truth. What felt like abandonment was protection all along.